Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for the Psychology of Student and Career Success webinar. My name is Vicky and I'm from the Myers-Briggs company. Today's webinar will run for about 1 hour. Due to the number of individuals that we've got joining, we will keep everybody on mute just to avoid any background noise, but we encourage your participation by using the questions box feature on your GoToWebinar panel. We want this to be an interactive webinar and I'll be assisting with questions and comments throughout. If we don't manage to answer all of your questions during the webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards, and we will actually have a little opportunity at the end of the session for answering some questions too. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and we'll be sending out an email with a link to the recording and the slides within the next few days, which will include the recording, notes, and a number of free resources, including the white paper, What Makes Interests So Interesting? So first, a little bit about the Myers-Briggs company. So we are a mission-driven organization with a 65-year history. You can see on this slide, our mission is to inspire everyone to lead more successful and fulfilling lives. We deliver on this through our talent identification and development consultancy services, and also by offering certification in trusted psychometric assessments for those practitioners who want to bring the capability in-house. We work with companies and institutions large and small from around the world, including 83% of the Fortune 100 companies, and many of the leading undergraduate and business schools. You can also see on the slide that we are a certified B Corporation, or otherwise known as B Corp. This means that we have gone through an official certification process to be recognized as a socially responsible organization. You might know us as being a provider of a range of leading assessments that support the entire talent lifecycle, from selecting the right talent, developing your people to enhance performance, and supporting career transitions. These include the MBTI and STRONG tools, which are often used in career exploration, as well as our Vita Navis platform. Now I will introduce our presenter for today, which is Cameron Knott. He is the psychologist and managing director at the Myers-Briggs company. Cameron has extensive experience helping leaders, teams, and individuals at all levels, including career exploration. Just a reminder that everyone who has registered for this webinar will receive an email in the coming days with notes, recording, and free resources. And with that, I will hand you over to Cameron.
Great. Thanks so much, Vicky. And everyone, look, thank you so much for joining our session today. It's great to see so many people who have an interest in this topic. Before I commence, I thought, look, as today's theme is about career exploration, I thought I'd share a bit about my own journey and a bit of the advice I received along the way. So back in primary school, I guess as a young kid, I received some positive feedback from teachers about a couple of art projects that I had, and that was enough to kind of put me on a bit of an art pathway for a moment. So I joined a high school that had this specialist art program. I kind of like technical drawing. So as a young teenager, I kind of started to think that I want to be an architect when I grew up. But then it's probably about year 9 for me. A lot of my friends wanted to become engineers, and look, to tell you the truth, I just didn't know what an engineer was. And as I looked into it, I kind of looked at civil engineering and thought, oh, look, that sounds like fancy architecture. So I guess for the rest of high school, I kind of started pursuing this idea of becoming a civil engineer. But then I had this awakening, and I thought, look, I could probably do engineering, but it wasn't really something that I was all that passionate about. And I kind of thought that I'd probably have more success in life. I thought that people would have more success in life if they pursued something that they had a bit of a passion in and a talent in. And what I really liked doing and what I got some positive feedback about was sitting down having coffee with friends. They seemed to get a lot out of having a chat with me. They kind of thought that I thought a little bit differently to them, and it was kind of a combination of my having a chat over coffee with friends, and mum thinking that, yeah, you'd probably be a good psychologist. That look, that was enough to kind of put me on a pathway to psychology. So I actually I had put in all of my preferences for civil engineering, and then a week later kind of switched it all around to psychology. And look, I really love what I do, but to tell you the truth, it would have been great to get some formal testing and maybe a little bit more kind of concrete career advice along the way. I think that would be very, very helpful. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about today, no, not just me and my career journey, but really we're looking more broadly at people's interest in career exploration. And we'll start off talking about some of the theories that underlie career exploration. And here we'll look at kind of some of the interest theories or vocational interest theories and personality theories. So I just want to give you a sense of that psychology that underlies this area here. We'll look at some of the outcome studies in students and adults. Now, there is a kind of research component there. I'm going to try to keep it light and bright, but if you do want to do a deeper dive into some of the research, I will have a lot of references for you. And then what I'll be doing is sharing with you just some of the different tools that you can look at that can be helpful in career counselling. So these are some of the ones that we represent, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the strong interest inventory, and also the Vid and Avis platform, which is more for educational institutions. And yeah, then we'll talk about next steps and open up to any questions that people might have too. So just so I can calibrate the session today to a degree, it's going to be helpful if I can just get a sense of who we have on the call. So, and maybe what your primary interest is in today's webinar. So these categories may not cover everyone who's on the call today, but it'd be great just to get a sense of, look, are you someone who's primarily kind of involved in supporting secondary school students, high school students with career exploration? Maybe you're a high school career counselor, or maybe you're a career coach that really works with secondary school students and their transition to maybe tertiary. Or maybe you're already working in that tertiary system. Perhaps you're working at a university or another kind of tertiary provider and helping tertiary students kind of pick a major, or they're helping them prepare them for that life post their tertiary degree. Maybe you are a career coach, do a lot of work with adults, maybe early career, mid-career, or late career in terms of their career exploration. Maybe you're attending for your own personal interest. Perhaps you're a parent who's interested as well, or maybe there's some other reason that you're joining. So I'll hand over to Vicky. Vicky's got the poll, I think, launched. Vicky?
Yes. Yep. So everybody has been very quick to respond, which is
cool,
fantastic.
Great.
I will hopefully just bring up these results now for you. But we've got 7% supporting secondary schools. We've got 23% supporting tertiary students, 35% supporting adults with career exploration,
wow.
22% attending for their own personal interest, and we've got 12% which is other. So anybody who has maybe selected other, feel free to drop it in the comments box on the GoToWebinar panel, just so we can see what that covers. That would be really interesting for us to know.
Maybe they're just a webinar junkie and they just saw the opportunity to get on and learn something new, and that's great too.
Maybe,
all right.
maybe.
Look, maybe. Thanks a lot, Vicky. Thanks a lot, everyone. That's really helpful. So look, let's have a look at some of the theoretical underpinning of why personality and interests are important. In doing this, I'm going to share some of the pioneering work in this area, and I think I might just toggle my video off because there's I don't want to have to fight with the slide, which has probably got a fair amount of content on there. So this might make it a little bit easier for you to read. So in terms of the early work in terms of understanding this area of career exploration, probably some of the earliest work really started with E.K. Strong. He was an organizational psychologist. He later worked at Stanford University. And Strong's interests, it began back in World War I. So he was younger at that time, and he kind of had the job of trying to match the new military recruits into positions according to their interests and aptitudes. So starting to formulate ideas around how we might do that. So if people had an interest in cooking, perhaps they watched MasterChef back around that time. They might, perhaps they would end up in the kitchen. If they had an interest in horses, maybe they end up in the cavalry. So it was kind of this idea of, all right, how do we match people? We've got these thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people perhaps, and how do we kind of match them into appropriate roles? But then his work there kind of started to evolve, and he kind of took this more professionally. And he, in terms of his research behind vocational interest, he was someone who he theorized that career interests were relatively permanent and quite stable across the lifetime. They're very predictive of career fit. He believed that vocational assessments are most useful when used to open up rather than limit the world of occupational choice. And look, that's something we really advocate as well in the work that we do, is that assessments are really powerful, but they're data points and they're thought-provoking. It's not designed to kind of say this is the job that you will do, or this is the major that you will study at school, but it's about giving us some data points to start to explore and really open up that world of occupational choice. He also emphasised the importance of vocational guidance and said that, look, guidance is needed throughout the lifespan, not just during high school. He kind of used the analogy of seeing the dentist. So, it's just good to go and get a regular checkup, not only when you absolutely need it, when you might have a dental issue or a career issue. It's kind of good to go and see the dentist. It's good to see the career counsellor throughout the throughout our lifespan. And also, look, again, his work goes back to kind of World War I, and it's kind of been more than 95 years of research supporting his work since he first published his first version of the tool, which was the Strong Interest Inventory in 1927. So it's very, very long history of research behind that tool and indeed the work that Strong conducted. Another big name in the area of career exploration is John Holland. He was an American psychologist. He was a professor at Johns Hopkins University, and he was creator of a career development model known as the Holland Occupational Themes, also known as the Holland Codes, or some might know it as the Rysick model. And his work's about 60 years old. And you'll find that his work, it is incorporated in a lot of different assessments. His model is quite widely used. I'll share a little bit about that in a moment. But he really said that people can be categorized into these 6 broad areas of realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. He also said that occupational environments can be divided by the same or categorized in those same interest areas. And typically, people will try to, based upon our personality, based upon our interests that can come from our personality and their interaction with the environment. But we will tend to pursue occupational environments that allow us to use our skills and aptitudes. And by pursuing occupations that align with our interests and our personality, then it tends to lead to just better job outcomes. It tends to lead to us being more satisfied in the work that we do. It tends to lead to high levels of performance, to stronger levels of engagement as well. So that's kind of typically how the idea of personality and interests can inform how we perform at work. This here, look, I'm sure many people on the call are familiar with this model. If you're not, here it is. This is Holland's Rysick model. Again, we're looking to kind of categorize people and occupations into these kind of 6 broad personality characteristics or 6 broad characteristics. And we don't, roles and people aren't just characterized by one. Typically, we have 2 or 3 that are kind of more stronger drivers for us or more evident in certain occupations. But again, realistic, those much more kind of tangible hands-on roles, investigative, where there's a lot of thinking and analysis required, artistic, much more creative. Social, we've got the helpers. Enterprising, kind of persuaders, sales, marketing, politics, and organising. Conventional, which is kind of more about administration and organisation. Once again, this model has become very popular, and it is widely used in career counselling and used in many different assessments. And the last model I wanted to share with you, and this is something which is probably more recent. It's been informed by the theoretical underpinnings of Strong and Holland and other researchers in this area. But this is the work from James Rounds. So he's a professor out of the University of Illinois, and Rong Su, who's an associate professor out of the University of Iowa. And they've done a lot of research in this area of kind of looking at the interaction between interests and career outcomes. And I'm going to share a bit more about their research a little bit later, but they've developed this kind of basic path model to show how interests, or perhaps more specifically our work-related interests, can influence certain outcomes. So as you can see in this model, we have interests, which are really, again, they're kind of a reflection or extension of our personality and the interaction with our environment and just different life experiences. And our interests can influence our motivation. Motivation can influence our behavior. And so if we're strongly motivated, we have kind of goal-oriented behaviors, then there's a better chance than not that we'll achieve those goals. In terms of that area of motivation, we can see that our interests will really drive kind of 3 different areas of motivation. So one is about direction, and that might be thought of in terms of the kind of careers we might be interested in. So whether it's in engineering or psychology or architecture, law, teaching, whatever interests you may have, that direction needs to be motivating. That can come from our interests. Vigor is about the intensity of that motivation. Then we've got our persistence, which is about kind of the length of time that we tend to remain motivated. So if we do have those right levels of motivation, then that will lead us to have those behaviors that will help us achieve our goals. So interests are a really big part of that. I'm going to talk a bit more about that research, as I said, a little bit later on. So like many of you on the call, I'm a practitioner. I do a lot of work in supporting others, but as a psychologist, I really know that the research behind the models that we use, the assessment that we use, is really important. We need to have an appreciation of that research. We need to make sure that we're using assessments and models that are both impactful, but also that they're ethical in the service that we provide. So I'd like to share with you some of the more recent research in this area. And look, there's extensive research that I could be sharing with you, but I'm just going to share 4 today that are probably representative of some of the literature in this area. And while at the Myers-Briggs company we do conduct our own research, what I'm going to share are some of the more significant studies conducted by some academics that are independent of our company. And you might see that there are some cases where they might be using some of our tools, like Myers-Briggs, like the Strong Interest Inventory, which are really widely used in this area. But there's a number of other assessments that may also be used. With each of the studies that I'm going to share, it'll contain a quote from the article. It's going to contain a graphic. But look, it's just to give you a taste of some of the research that support this area of career exploration. And there is a more comprehensive list of references that we can also get out to you. So the first one here is looking at the timely degree completion. And I think lots of students, lots of institutions, they want their students to finish their degrees on time, and degree completion time can actually be an important metric for a lot of institution ratings. And this first study, it looked at the congruence between student interests, so the things students are interested in, and their university major, and how that helped to predict timely degree completion. And if we look at the last sentence of the quote from this study, the findings suggested that the congruence between an individual's interest and their major had a very direct effect on the timely degree of completion. And this was, they're looking at studies across kind of two different kinds of institutions, that either a 4-year kind of college or perhaps a 2-year kind of tertiary program. So regardless of the type of program it was, they found that having a really strong kind of correlation or alignment between interest and major, had that congruence, had a really strong prediction in terms of degree completion time. So essentially, if we can do a better job up front in sorting students into degrees or helping our children into degrees that align with their interests, it's going to probably increase the probability that they complete their studies on time. The second study here is, look, it's both an eye test, probably a little bit more of an eye test than the previous study, but it's also a meta-analysis. So a meta-analysis essentially is pulling together a lot of other published studies in the field, and it tries to kind of synthesize all that information and to calculate an overall result. And look, this is a really great study. It's a very recent study. It's published by a highly reputable psychological bulletin. And what this study is doing is it's looking at hit rates. So it's trying to look at really the percentage of correct predictions out of the sample. So it's trying to work out how well an assessment can predict a university major or occupation. So people are in certain careers, people are studying certain majors, and it's trying to see, okay, if people are taking this assessment, how well, what's the strong correlation, what's the hit rate of how well that assessment can predict, or that interest assessment can predict the path that person has chosen. And looking at the quote here again from the article, it says that vocational interests are highly accurate predictors of career choices, including educational majors, future occupations. Interests predict career choices equally well for men and women, which were the gender study studied in these particular research pieces, for different types of jobs and for both current and future career choices. So again, really, really strong support there in a really major piece of work for the use of interest assessments in predicting really positive outcomes in terms of occupation and study. This next study is from those researchers who predicted that or presented that path model before about how interests would go forward and influence certain outcomes. And they had a look at 5 different kind of key outcomes. So they're looking at the relationship between interests, personality, and ability, and to see how well they could predict outcomes such as income, occupational prestige, degree attainment, college persistence or degree persistence, and grades in college as well. So they were trying to work out to what degree does someone's interest kind of drive results in these areas, their personality, and also their ability to predict, and also ability, I should say. So abilities, personality, and interest, and to what degree they can predict variance in each of these outcomes. And the research was really significant research. It was done with students, but it can certainly be extrapolated to people of all backgrounds, which is often the case of a lot of research that occurs to look at how that can be extended beyond the sample. And they'd use a really large sample of over 400,000 high school students from 1,300 schools, and it's longitudinal data as well. So people were tracked over time, and they found that students who are interested in their major are more likely to perform better. They tend to persist longer in school. They tend to stay in their majors, and or at least more so than their more disinterested peers. So they said that, look, interests are very predictive in terms of educational, occupational choice, performance, and success. And I think what's quite interesting in terms of this particular chart is that while interests are important, and look, I think we can. The researchers behind this particular study, they had quite a distinct view of personality versus interest, but to me they're very related constructs. But what I think is particularly interesting here is that interest had a really really powerful prediction rate in terms of income. So it just shows that if people are all of the same ability, it's really the interest that will drive the success that they have at the end of the day. If income is seen as a measure of success, so there are many different measures of success in terms of occupations and our careers, but income might be seen as one of them. The last study I wanted to share with you looks at career decision-making confidence or career decision-making self-efficacy. And this here is really, it's kind of a true experiment. So a lot of the other things that I've shared with you are more kind of population-based studies, correlational studies. This here was really sort of a very true experiment where people were put into different kinds of groups, there's a control group and two other experimental groups. And I was trying to work out, I was trying to look at how people feel about making decisions about their career and the value of career assessments and counselling. And it found that if a student was given the ability to take an assessment and receive some kind of career guidance, so in this case it was through a group feedback session. So if they took an assessment, they took a career assessment, received that feedback from a practitioner, they reported a stronger feeling of self-efficacy or confidence than those students who didn't receive the opportunity for that career guidance. So I think it's a really I think it's a really interesting study, and I think it's a great one for the practitioners out there, just to emphasize the value of career counselling, that assessments are valuable, but if you can put the assessments into the hands of a trained practitioner who can really help guide the individual with their career exploration, then that's going to lead to that individual becoming more confident in terms of their career choices, and perhaps that confidence will then drive more proactivity in terms of the decisions that they do make. So I've shared with you some of the theories behind, the psychological theories behind career exploration, shared with you some of the research in this area, and a lot of that research was sort of driven based upon the use of assessments in career counselling. And what I'm going to do for you in a moment is to share with you a few different assessments, and perhaps to give you some ideas in terms of how they can help you or help the people you're looking to support with career exploration decisions. But before we do that, I thought we might just do a quick check-in with the group. And I shared a bit about my own career journey and the sorts of things that were helpful for me or helped inform the different careers that I was looking to explore. But I guess I'll take you back and to think about, look, what are the different careers that you considered when you were in high school? Maybe you were very self-directed. Maybe your teachers, your friends, your parents were looking to inform or help inform that decision for you. But if you wouldn't mind just going to the chat, it'd be great for you to just share, what are some of the different careers that you were interested in when you were in high school? And Vicky, you might be able to help me out with reading some of the responses that come through.
Yeah, sure. We've had chiropractors, vets, teachers, fellow art lovers like yourself, Cameron, video game developer.
Oh, wow.
drafting technician, pop stars, journalists, quite the variety.
Cool. All right. So I guess we've got it might give us some insights in terms of the age variation in our audience. I didn't hear any influences come through. I expect that if we do this with a much younger audience, I've got a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 8-year-old. I'm sure they all want to be professional gamers and influencers, but we'll see how that changes. Great. Look, thank you for sharing that. And look, I think it's interesting because there's different numbers on this, but they're said to be perhaps more than 12,000 different kind of occupations that are available. And it is funny how in high school, look, we just don't necessarily have that that awareness, and indeed some of the people who were around don't have that awareness of the many different kind of careers that are available. Although I must say the ones that were shared, there were some quite unique ones there, not ones that you necessarily hear all the time. But look, for me, as I said, in terms of my own experience, look, I think it'd be really helpful to have had that chance to go through an assessment, to have that chance to go through and explore the different things I was interested in, so I could have that greater confidence, that greater clarity in terms of a pathway that was going to be right for me. And fortunately for me, I kind of landed where I'm meant to be. But again, I got a bit lucky there, I think, and I think assessments could be really helpful. So in terms of assessments and where they fit into the career exploration process, this here is, look, it's a pretty straightforward model, but I think it's just good to keep in mind in terms of where assessments can fit in. And this model might look a little different according to some practitioners, but essentially there's going to be some kind of intake, some kind of contracting with the individual, just getting clear about what the engagement is to be about, whether you're an internal practitioner or an external practitioner, and the support that you're looking to provide. And then the next one is the step that we hope you don't kind of skip, and we hope isn't just fully informed by actually conversations with parents and friends and what you've seen on TV, but the idea of actually taking an assessment, or perhaps multiple assessments, which can really help us just learn more about who we are. I think a lot of us think that we're pretty self-aware, and I think there's a lot of truth to that in terms of there's things that we know about ourselves, but there's things that we don't. There are blind spots that we have, and just things that we're not necessarily aware of in life. So assessments start to just open up our awareness of who I am, and this is where personality assessments in particular can be really powerful, just to understand who I am, what drives me. Why do I want to work is sort of an extension of that too. So my personality, my interests, how is that informing the reasons I want to work? What's really driving me? What do I want to do? This is where we're getting much more specific about the interests that I have. So what are the tasks that I like? What are the activities that I like to do? And also, where do I want to do it? So for example, just on those last 2 points, it could be that maybe I'd like to be, perhaps I'd like to be an accountant, but I could be an accountant in many different environments. I could be an accountant in a professional services firm, one of the top tier accounting firms perhaps, and be an auditor or related kind of position, tax accountant. Or I could be an accountant who is working in a maybe more socially oriented organization, maybe in the healthcare setting. Maybe that's something that appeals to me. Maybe I want to be an accountant who kind of, maybe I want to be a solo practitioner. So there is the question about what do I want to do? What are the activities that I enjoy? What's the occupation that I'd like to pursue? But then it's also a case of, all right, where do I want to do that? And that's, I think, a part of the conversation that's sometimes overlooked, and I think it's really important in terms of engagement and that persistence in roles. So once we have those insights from assessments, that's when we can start to do the hard work of exploring. So going out there, starting to do the research, speaking to people, and learning more about what these occupations really do look like, and then kind of put a plan in place around that as well. So assessments can be really helpful. Today I'm going to share with you, 3 assessments or 2 assessments and one sort of assessment platform that we'll often use as part of this career counselling process. So the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, the MBTI, I think a lot of people have heard of. It's a personality assessment which has a really rich history. It's very widely used across a lot of corporations, but also it's widely used in a lot of the educational institutions that we support. It's used in career counselling, so with that occupational choice, but it's also used just in terms of building self-awareness, helping us manage our stress and so on. So the applications of the MBTI can include teams and leadership, conflicts and career exploration. And one of the powers of the MBTI is that it helps people to have a really common language for starting to understand ourselves and start to explore differences in others. And when it comes to careers, look, all the preferences are important. So look, as you look at the model here, we could have preferences for extroversion or introversion, sensing or intuition, thinking, feeling, judging, perceiving. And as we go through, we tend to have kind of a 4-letter code that kind of really helps define who we are in terms of some core elements of our personality. It doesn't describe everything, but it does describe a lot of core elements about our personality. But it's really those middle 2 preferences that really drive what's important to us in terms of our careers. Sensing intuition is about the information we tune into. It's about kind of the information that we trust. Thinking and feeling is about the decisions that we want to make in our careers. I'm going to expand upon this in a few moments. So all preferences are important, but those middle 2 really kind of drive who we are. They're kind of our cognitive personality functions. So the MBTI will help us understand these innate personality preferences. So how we like to take in information, make decisions, how we like to interact. It helps us to understand, or helps the client to evaluate what they really find motivating, who they are, what's really driving them. It can be helpful in terms of looking at that alignment between our personality and the occupation we might pursue. And it helps us understand some of the behaviors that we have and how they might support us in certain roles and where there might be some blind spots for us too. And it really helps to answer the questions about who am I and what's really driving me? Why do I really want to work? So I mentioned that those middle 2 preferences can be really predictive in terms of career choice because it's about kind of the cognitive aspects of our personality. It's about kind of the information we take in, the decisions we want to make, and so we want to find ourselves in occupations or environments which support our personality. It kind of, again, we've been talking a bit about the kind of personality and interests and occupation congruence, and if there is that congruence, that tends to lead to some really positive outcomes. So people who have their middle letters as being ST, they tend to be people who are, that they value facts, they value details, they value experience, they tend to be quite practical. And this tends to align with careers in kind of finance and administration, production, sciences, and the trades. SFs, we've got also that sensing is common, so it's really focusing on details and facts and things that are realistic, but they bring in this feeling element, so this real concern for people and values. So they tend to like to be quite practical and helpful. So we can often find SFs really enjoy careers in teaching, healthcare, any sort of service-oriented profession is often quite a good alignment for the SFs. NFs, we're kind of still sticking with the idea of people and values, but now we're looking a bit more bigger picture. So NFs tend to focus on possibilities. They tend to enjoy encouraging people. They enjoy possibilities for people. You might find NFs tend to like careers in psychology or kind of learning and development, religion, healthcare, can often be quite creative types as well. And the last one here is NT. So still big picture, but now focusing on things which are more logical and objective from a decision-making point of view. They value competence, they value systems, and you might find NTs in areas of research and management, strategic consulting, certain engineering as well. So one comment I want to make is that, look, regardless of our personality, we can all pursue careers in any occupation, in any industry. And indeed, at the Myers-Briggs company, we do have tables of different occupations and the different personality types that are aligned with those occupations. And the one consistent thing is that all personality types do identify with and do work in each occupation. However, we do tend to find clusters, and these middle letters is where we do start to find the clustering of certain personality types in certain occupations, because they're kind of freely pursuing an occupation that is motivating and really drives them. With the MBTI, there is a dedicated career report. So if this is something that you're interested in, we have sample reports available on our website, but it shows how our personality preferences can be really informative in terms of career exploration, and some of the occupations that we tend to be attracted more to based upon our personality types. The next one I wanted to mention is the strong interest inventory. I kind of touched on this early on with the work of E.K. Strong, who was one of the pioneers in this area. The origins of this tool goes back to 1927. That's when the first kind of version was published. It looks to measure interest based upon, it incorporates Holland's Ryersek model, which is just a useful tool to kind of start to categorize and give us a high level understanding of an individual and certain occupations. But what it does is it really drills down to quite a deep level. It looks at the activities that we enjoy. It looks at specific occupations. It also has sort of to a degree, a personality assessment in there as well, which will give us some insights in terms of our work style, the preferred learning environments, whether we like leadership or risk-taking, team orientation, and so on. And there was a quote from an independent agency called Bureaus. They put out a book called or now it's a website. I think they put out the book still, Mental Measurements Yearbook. And they said it's the best interest assessment available to career counsellors. So we like sharing that because it's not a bad quote from that well-respected independent agency. So I've touched on a few of the points here, but look, what the strong can be really helpful to help us evaluate is, the things that I like to do and perhaps the environment that I like to work in. So I think it's a really clever assessment, and it does get quite granular. So a lot of people really do enjoy it because it gives you a lot of different places to explore. We have a few different reports for the strong. There is the kind of more standard profile and interpretive report. There is a version that's got some additional information for high school students. There's also another version that has some additional information for college students. And there's also a version that combines the insights from the Myers-Briggs type indicator and the strong. So you're getting kind of a really deep insight in terms of personality, in addition to looking at our very specific work interests and occupational interests. The last one I was going to mention and just touch on here today is the Vidanavis Career Readiness Platform. This is probably, it's a more recently developed platform for us. It's something which is really offered to educational institutions. It's something which it's kind of online. It doesn't give us, actually it does now, give us a specific report, but it's more of I guess the key strength of the tool is it is a more online interactive platform. And it allows students to go through to do a self-assessment, but also it gives the practitioner a chance to support them through that process as well. And there is kind of a version of the strong that's included. It's kind of a short form version of the strong, which kind of has insights in terms of that Ryersek model as well, and some of our personality characteristics. There's other kind of add-on modules that relate to personality and student success, which I'm going to touch on, and things that can allow us to kind of consolidate our experience and how that might relate to our career exploration. It's a really nice tool for participants to use. It's really easy to kind of get on there. It's quite rewarding to take the assessment and to go through and kind of explore our results. It gives us some very tangible occupational insights as well. So it's a really enjoyable tool to use. For the educational institutions, it is really quite powerful. So it does help with participant retention. For all the reasons that we've discussed today, in terms of the reasons that we should be using assessments as part of career exploration, it gives us all those benefits. But I think it's really quite effective from a resource allocation point of view. And a lot of the institutions that I speak to, the educational institutions I speak to, they really are quite people resource poor. There's thousands and thousands of students in some cases, and only a small number of people who are kind of devoted to supporting them from a career point of view. So this is a really useful tool, and that allows them to do a kind of a self-administrable, self-interpretable assessment. But you can then go in as that practitioner and do group-based work or more targeted one-on-one work if you'd like to. And there are some data analytics that you can extract that can be quite helpful from a more macro career counselling point of view for the institution. So included within the VitaNavis platform, what comes as standard is the Super Strong, which is more this short form version of the Strong. It doesn't get to the same level of detail, but it's really quite a nice, neat, quick, valid, practical tool. Just takes 10 minutes to complete. There is the student success profile. This is sort of an optional add-on, but if you're wanting to really help students, some targeted students, perhaps in particular, it can give you some really good insights in terms of things like growth mindset, their level of self-sufficiency, and kind of where they might, what their style might be in terms of task completion. And this is something which has been built upon or powered by the California Psychological Inventory. So it's a really robust personality tool that helps provide these insights. And also included is a skill builder, which is kind of a fairly neat tool in the platform that allows students to go through and record experiences they've had. Maybe they've been working part-time in a fast food restaurant. Perhaps they've been working in a retail environment, some volunteer opportunities. It allows them to go through and just start to record some of these experiences and to look at what are the skills and competencies that they may have developed through those experiences, because sometimes they might undervalue that. They might think, oh, no, I just worked in fast food. And they're not able to necessarily articulate what is it that they've taken out of that experience in terms of customer service, in terms of time management, in terms of accountability. What are those key competencies that they've been able to develop in those occupations that they can use and that they can then articulate for when they're looking to apply for maybe more professional jobs that they're looking to move into. So those were just some of the features of the VitaNavis platform, and also just a quick overview of a couple of the assessments that we are really quite popular that we have, the MBTI and the Strong. And as we look to conclude the session, there's just a few summary points I'd like to leave with you. So as a reminder, we really want to emphasize that helping people understand their interest profiles can increase our confidence that they're making good career decisions. People who understand their interests have a better chance of finding environments, academic programs, and occupations that are congruent with their interests. And as we really emphasized today, congruent interests interests that are congruent with their educational choices or occupational choices just leads to really good outcomes in those areas. And certainly that validated personality and interest career assessments can be really helpful here. So on that note, I think what I'll do now is hand over to Vicky.
Thanks, Cameron. Thank you for a great session there. Before we open up to any chat questions, if you haven't got one in, feel free to pop it in now. I wanted to just let you know about a few free resources that we've got and some of our services and products that might also be of interest to you. So for those interested in getting access to powerful career assessments like the MBTI personality framework or the strong interest inventory, which Cameron's just spoken through, we have certification programs scheduled for next year. If you are quick and enroll this week, you can do so at 2022 prices. In 2023, there is going to be a slight price increase just due to operational costs overall rising. So if you are interested in those courses, get in quickly. If you're also interested in the Vita Navis platform, you can speak with one of our account managers about training and also annual subscription options. So feel free to get in touch about that. If you have a need for some expert advice or an extra set of hands, we do offer consulting services where one of our experienced consultants like Cameron can get to know your organization and design and deliver a customized solution to meet your business requirements. We specialize in areas of leadership, team, organizational development, as well as talent assessments for selection and succession planning, as well as career coaching. This year, we've seen a real call for both virtual and in-person sessions with a focus on inclusive leadership, as well as leading change for leadership groups. And in terms of team development, we are delivering workshops that relate to connection, change, and accelerating team performance in a hybrid environment. Also, as I said, as a thank you for attending the session, we have a number of helpful free resources for you, which we'll be sending out to you. These include a white paper about interests, a tip sheet about personality type and learning, and activities that can be used to help career exploration. So we'll be sending a link out for you to download these along with the webinar notes and a recording of the webinar in the coming days after this session. Cameron shared some fantastic research today, but there is a lot more to look at. So he has included a selection in these notes here in terms of references. So you'll be able to also access those in the slides that we send out to you via email. I think we've got a couple of minutes, so I will take a few questions. We've got one here, Cameron. It says, the world of work is changing. There are a lot of new jobs. Do these assessments cater for these too?
They do, in that what these assessments allow us to do. So the world of work is changing a lot, as was said, and the nature of occupations are changing a lot too. So an assessment, a validated assessment, is, what it will do is will give us some really core insights in terms of the individual, and some broad and specific ideas in terms of activities and directions that they might like to pursue in terms of their study or their occupations. But the real key in using these assessments is just the skill of the practitioner too. So the assessment there is to kind of give some data points, to provide some insights, but it's there to complement the practitioner, and the practitioner should be able to help synthesize what they're taking out of the assessment, but also just some of the other interests that the individual might have, and what the practitioner also knows about the world of work, and perhaps some of the new and emerging occupations too. So it is kind of it is about the assessment and the practitioner working together to ensure that the relevance of these tools.
Great, thank you for that. Hopefully that answers your question. Here's another one that we've had submitted. Can you do group feedback sessions based on career assessments?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, yeah. We do both. So we do individual feedback sessions and do group. A lot of the people that we've trained up, they're also using group feedback sessions. I think group feedback sessions can be really fun. We know there's a number of professional sporting organisations which use some of these tools. I'm thinking about the Strong in particular, where a lot of these people, they've been all they've known since they've been a teenager, all they've wanted is since they've been a teenager is to be a professional athlete, and that professional athletic career can sometimes be, and normally is, a little bit short. So often a lot of the organisations that are supporting these athletes are giving them these kind of career exploration processes. So what can be fun is for them to go through some of these tools together, do some exercises, and it just makes it a really engaging experience. So that's happening in, I guess, the professional world of sports. I know it's also being used in educational institutions to take high school students and tertiary students through in kind of more of an efficient group basis as well. So yes, so that was a long answer to the question, but the answer is yes.
Fantastic. And I think we've got time for another one. If you had to pick one, which assessment would you recommend, MBTI or the Strong?
Oh, that's like choosing between my children. But look, no, which I could never do. But look, in terms of the MBTI and the Strong, they're both really great tools, and they can be used together. So maybe I'd say that as a starting point, because they are offering discrete information, and there is also this combined report, so you can generate insights based upon both. You do need to be qualified in both to use them. But if I just had to pick one, it really comes down to what's the level of support that you want to offer as a practitioner. If it's very focused on career exploration, then the Strong is very specific in that direction. It will give you some insights in terms of personality too, but it's really specific and practical from a career point of view. If I'm wanting to offer both some career guidance, but also maybe some individual coaching, I'm wanting to help build the person's self-awareness. Maybe I'm working with someone kind of mid-career. I'm wanting to give them some leadership development insights in addition to some career insights. Then I think the MBTI is probably the way to go there, because it's more broader in terms of what it focuses on, but it does have some career insights and a dedicated career report too.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing those answers. I don't think we have time for any more, but thank you to all those who have submitted. We will come back to you separately where we can to answer your questions. And yes, thank you just once again for a great presentation, Cameron, and thank you to everybody for joining us and sharing and engaging in the polls and the comments section.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time today and your interest. Have a great day.